Hey guys, welcome back to Tennis 360 Podcast, the podcast where we talk about all things tennis. My name's Anthony Hirsch.
I'm Eliza Wastcoat.
Welcome back to the podcast. So we've had the first few days of Roland Garros. We've had most of the very, very top seeds coming through the draw, but we've had a couple of surprises. But it's a podcast that can catch everyone up to speed with everything that's been going on. And I appreciate everybody joining in. So to start off, I think we can mention a few of the results that happened. Go to the ATP side first. We had Alcaraz with a 4-set win over De Jong in the second round. In the first round, he had a straight set win over JJ Wolf. I think against De Jong, even Alcaraz admitted that he could have played with a little bit more intensity at times and wasn't quite at his best, but he's still easing into his game, and he's obviously coming off an injury, just like Jannik Sinner is as well. And he got the win over Gasquet in straight sets. I thought Sinner played fantastic. I thought that De Jong played a very impressive match, and I think that he's going to definitely rise up in the ranking soon. I think that he came in very intense and very motivated. So I thought that Alcaraz had a tougher opponent than the rankings suggested, but that's still probably not a player who would be happy to go 4 sets with. So I think he'll be more careful over the next rounds to kind of play quicker matches if he has any kind of say over it. But overall, I think the signs are good for both of them, at least from a health perspective. But I thought that Jannik, in his first round, not a stop, and the second round looked very good also. So I was wondering your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think Tennis Channel had a very interesting interview with Sinner about his kind of preparation for Roland Garros. So he did clear up that his hip isn't, per se bothering him, but that he was actually sick for 2 weeks and didn't pick up a racket. And then he had 5 days of preparation coming into Roland Garros, which is obviously far from ideal. And so for me, the question marks still bubble a little bit over, how you can play yourself into some fitness. Of course, having, a couple two early rounds where you've gotten through, no problem. I think it just shows where his level is at generally with Sinner, in his ability to take care of business. And he is elite in that way. I think if there is evidence of, a potential slight dip in fitness or question marks over the hip still, even though he said that's feeling fine, I don't think we will see that until the second week. But it's still tough coming into a Grand Slam, having only had 5 days of preparation. Of course, he'll be working on the fitness as well with some of these earlier matches being a little bit shorter. He's kind of got time to keep working on things on the practice courts. But for me, some question marks, but the performances from him have been so clean. And with Alcaraz, I thought that Gil Gross made a decent point in terms of, the forehand. He's perhaps not able to fully unload on the forehand in a way that he would like to, but perhaps that might force him to play a little bit smarter, use some angles, not kind of kill himself with the big forehand every single point. And at times that can actually be a weakness for Alcaraz when he is kind of overcooking it at times with massive forehands. This is sort of forcing him to think and do otherwise. So I do think it's something he should be able to navigate. My question mark with him is going to be more so around nerve management at this tournament. He's been so much better than this time last year in terms of the nerve management, but he did look kind of stressed in that De Jong match, and kind of let De Jong a little bit back in that third set. So I'm still want to be proven wrong in my thoughts of them not necessarily being my top picks, because I so enjoy their tennis and I'm big fans of theirs, but I'm not fully convinced I've seen enough to know really how healthy they are at this stage.
Yeah, I guess it's still a little bit difficult to figure out, but I will say it's clear that neither of them, I think, played at their full 100%. I think that it was clear in some of Sinner's movement, although I do think that at times in his second match, he went 100%. He looked quite good doing it, where he went at a full sprint, and I think that they're kind of testing themselves still. I bet that it seems like they don't know themselves, also from the words that they've spoken. but they're still currently trying to figure out exactly what they can do. Alcaraz, after his first match, said that a few times in the match he unloaded 100% of the forehand, and it worked out quite well for him. So I think that kind of shows that he's still testing the waters, but I think that they're looking pretty good for the most part. And I think that, even if they can't find 100%, them at 80, 90%, that they are still two of the very, very best players in the world, can beat almost anybody, even at 80, 90%. And they're both playing fantastic at the moment, whether that's their 100% or not. I will say that Yannick against Gasquet, I thought he was playing brilliantly. He, in that match, he won, I think, 94% of his net points won. He was coming to net all the time against Richard Gasquet, and Gasquet played well too, I thought, for what he can do at the moment. It's clearly not the Gasquet that he was 10, 15 years ago, but he's still a great player, like we saw in the first round against Coric. And I thought that they both are. Center played a very good second round match. I'm excited to see where he goes. And Alcaraz, let's see how he keeps building out his form and how he looks on that forehand when he really needs to absolutely unload against the best players, when he needs that as a weapon. So I do think that's an interesting point about consistency. He'll also need it as a big weapon. So we'll just see as the tournament unfolds how it happens.
I think we're waiting for the dust to settle on a lot of things on the men's side, in terms of having a good understanding of where those two are, also where Djokovic is. I know we were going to chat about him, but he's played 2 very clean matches, looked unfazed. I mean, he has a very good draw. Could face a tricky 4th round potentially with somebody like a Tommy Paul or Cerundolo, but we had question marks over him coming into this tournament as well. So. And then obviously with Nadal losing to Zverev in the first round, that was kind of another person that maybe would have been an outside pick for some folks. So I think we're still just waiting to see kind of how this shakes out. Rune had a close call. So folks are advancing with different kind of speeds and, different accuracy. But I think still it's kind of hard to pick somebody at this point to really lean on as a sure bet for a winner at this point in the tournament.
Yeah, I agree. But I also do want to point out that I think Novak, to me, I think he played his best match that he's played all year, in my opinion, against Carballes Baena today. I mean, everything looked sharp. I haven't seen him play that sharp. It was played on indoors with the roof closed, which I think helped out his game a lot. But, they played a very tight first set. Carballes Baena, I thought, played some of the best level I'd ever seen him play. And Carballes Baena escaped a few close games at the start of that first set. And then towards the end of the set, Djokovic just played the bigger points better, and Baena became a little bit more passive. He was playing very aggressive to start off. Then the second and third sets, Djokovic just went on an absolute tear, and he was playing cat and mouse brilliantly, and he was playing aggressive when he needed to. But that cat and mouse, he was coming to net. He was hitting great drop volleys. He was hitting behind Baena brilliantly. It just looked casual for him. And that's the Novak that I know, where he doesn't look stressed. He looks motivated. And that's the energy that you get from him. But it comes down this kind of casual swagger where he's just hitting a back and return a serve, and it just goes for a winner. And that's a Djokovic that I'm really excited about seeing, because I haven't seen him since the ATP Finals or maybe Davis Cup last year. So I was excited to see that. And I did want to ask you what percentage of his best level, or let me phrase it differently. What percentage of his best level that you could expect today, so pretty much 2023, 2024 level Novak, what percentage of his best level do you think he brought today against his opponent Carballes Baena?
That's a tough question. Because for me, I think we see the best Djokovic when the quality of his opponent is also super high. I'm not saying that Carballes Baena isn't a good player by any means, but I'm talking, making a judgment on that once we're seeing matchups with folks who are, inside the top 15, inside the top 10, inside the top 5. I think it's a progressive ramping up of kind of where Djokovic's level is. So I struggle to answer that question a little bit at the moment, but I was very much encouraged, as you say, by the focus, the intensity, and the approach that he took towards these last 2 matches. And as you say, particularly the second round match, the odd losses that he's had this year have felt like, against that lesser opponent who he's not focused against. And so it's really important to see him taking care of business and showing up, with a clean slate for his first 2 rounds. He struggled first 2 rounds in Australia. He had that really tough first or second round match there as well. So I don't know. I'm deferring the question to next week.
Next week, Eliza will answer the question.
Yeah,
okay,
I'll answer it next week.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and say 85. I feel happy with 85, and that's a strong number for myself. So I thought Djokovic played well, and I thought that he deserves the flowers for that. We've had a few seeds going out on the men's side. You mentioned some of the close calls. Okay, actually, I'll mention the seeds in a second. I want to talk about the ridiculous Rune match that just occurred, which was absolutely ridiculous against Cobolli. First. Yeah. Well, okay. So 2 matches were happening at the same time, Rune and Rue. They were both in a 5th set, and it looked like they were both on upset alert. Both players escaped. Holger Rune was down 5-0 in the tiebreaker, and Cobolli was playing amazing. Very young, talented player, got to the semifinals Geneva last week and lost to Casper Ruud in the semifinals. And there's so many Italian players that any one of them can get swept under the rug. But Cobolli is definitely somebody to watch, and he played fantastic against Rune. 5-0 position, hitting loads of winners. He blasted winners, got to 5-0. And then Rune, in response to a huge serve, stepped in with a backhand and just absolutely smashed the backhand, which I didn't see the speed clock for it, but it must have rendered at least 105 miles per hour or something. It was insane. It was bananas. And then it was that kind of moment where you just felt like, okay, maybe Rune might come back here and really create a moment here. And he absolutely did. I mean, I think it was like 10-7, the tiebreaker. He won, just doing quick math, like 10 of the last 13 points, or 10 of the last 12 points, whatever it is. So that's just absolutely ridiculous. And okay, well, I'll say this as well. Brett Haber, who's commentating for Tennis Channel as I was watching it, he said at 5-0 that Rune lost to Rublev with the same scoreline at the Australian Open, and he said, "Is this Rune's time to be down 5-0 and then come back?" I was like, I commentate on this channel in much lesser way than Brett Haber, but I was just like, well, maybe give the flowers to Cobolli at this moment. I don't know if Rune can come back here, but little did you know, the second he finished saying that, Rune smashed this return winner and did the exact thing that he said. So shout out to Brett Haber because he called it. I was just an astounding comeback from Rune, and he's a contender, I think, or at least a contender to go deep at this slam. But I thought that was a ridiculous comeback, full of lots of winners as well from Rune. 2 backhand return winners. It was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought the quality of that 5th set overall was so high from both of the players. It wasn't like any of these guys kind of back their way into getting to a tiebreak. I thought Cobolli served huge. I thought he took care of his serve really well in the business end of that 5th set to get to the tiebreak. I think it's another reason why I love the 10-point tiebreaks. It certainly makes the end of a match very interesting without it having to drag, multiple games longer. And it's just a lot of fun for fans. And I think it's also why, 10 points versus 7 points is pretty tricky. If you're 5-love up in a 7-point tiebreak, that's a pretty difficult deficit to turn around. There's pretty much no margin for error. Rune was down 6-1 as well. So he certainly took his time, building back the points and getting the mini breaks back. And I also don't think that Cobolli necessarily choked up. I mean, he did miss a couple of shots that maybe a couple games earlier he wasn't missing, but the level was so high, and Rune was just defending ridiculously. I mean, the majority of the time he was outside of the camera angle. He was that far back in the court. You were just seeing balls come back, but not seeing the player, which was just crazy, and it kind of shows, his mental fortitude. It reminded me of the tiebreak he played in Wimbledon last year against Davidovich Fokina. I don't know if he was down 5-love, but he was down by a good number, and that's when Fokina had his biggest brain fart ever and served an underarm serve and sort of let Rune back in. But it shows that I think Rune has a fantastic mentality as a youngster. And yes, he's had moments where he's, overboiled, but certainly that competitiveness in him and that sort of ability to dig deep is what separates him from some of the other youngsters at the moment. Even though he's not right at the very top, he's amongst the best of the younger players for sure. And I just thought the level in that match was incredibly high, and that'll give him a huge confidence boost because Cobolli is a rising star and certainly a very tough opponent. And for Cobolli to even force the fifth set tiebreak in itself was impressive, having been down 2-0. So, I mean, what a fun match. And it's great to get, these types of matchups early on in the slams.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think that Rune has one of the better mentalities, especially when he needs to come back in a match and fight. I mean, he doesn't always win the match, but he always fights well. But yeah, that led me to just quickly the seeds that have gone out on the men's side. We've got Nicolas Jarry and Alejandro Tabilo, who did really well at Rome, are out. Also Artur Fils, also Navone, Argentine player, Adrian Manarino, Francis Tiafoe lost as well to Denis Shapovalov, which is a great win for Shapovalov, who's been looking for success. But Tiafoe keep looking for that extra something that he had between about the end of 2022 to the middle 2023, from around the U.S. Open when he had that crazy run to the start of the grass court swing. Since then, he had a loss to Dimitrov at Wimbledon, and right around that point, I just felt like he was not really himself. So he's still looking for that extra something he had. Sebastian Baez, Alexander Bublik, and also Hugo Humbert lost as well. Hugo Humbert doesn't really love these conditions, but he was those are the seeds that have gone out so far. To me, nobody that's outrageously surprising or shocking or anything like that. In fact, we have the top 15 players still left, which is pretty good. And I do think that all of Djokovic, Sinner, Alcaraz, Zverev, Medvedev all have shown up with a good level so far, at least Sinner and Alcaraz, relative to what their injuries are. So I think that we should be pretty excited about that and happy about that.
My only two standouts from that list are Jarry and Tabilo, to be honest. I really thought Jarry could have a good French Open run. So I was a little disappointed in that result.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I don't know. I hope that Jarry can pick it up in the majors. For whatever reason, I just feel like he hasn't quite fulfilled his potential there. So we'll see if he can do that. And Tabilo will probably have a good Roland Garros down the road. Just hard to. I guess that was his breakthrough event, but yeah, I guess that they could have both built on that. The last thing for the ATP side I want to talk about is obviously Rafa versus Zverev as well. I feel like is an important match to talk about. I thought Rafa played well. I thought that it was a very respectable and very enjoyable match to go out on from his end. I think that he had some incredible shot. He had some incredible shot making in that match. I will say that I would have preferred to have multiple matches from him to really take the tennis in. But it is what it is. He probably lost to, in that specific moment, that specific day, what I think is probably the best and most confident player in the world, in my opinion, on that day. I mean, Sinner and Alcaraz, as the tournament improves, I'm sure will probably pick up in level, but the champion of Rome, has great momentum. It's an unfortunate draw, but there's no shame to lose, and he was very close in the second and the third set. And I think that Rafa, Rafa should feel happy about how he played, because I think at times he played top 5. I mean, it is Rafa at RG, and he played great. And I throughout the match, I think he played at a top 10 level, which I think he'd be really happy with. He went neck to neck with Zverev for a long time. So Nadal should be left happy despite not winning a set. And I mean, Zverev played unreal, serving unreal. So we'll see how Zverev keeps going. But it was Rafa's moment and Rafa's day. And I don't know if he's going to come back, but I hope he can come back for the Olympics, which will also be held at Roland Garros. But we will see what all happens with that. But some great passing shots, volleys, and he left the crowd excited and energized. I think we couldn't have asked for much more of that. He did play well. So
I agree. I thought he made the match competitive. It's kind of what I expected of him. I thought that, he wouldn't play this tournament unless he thought he was in a good shape to, to potentially win a couple matches or, at least make a good show of himself. And as you say, unfortunate to draw Zverev in the first round. He would have preferred, a different draw and the chance to win a couple of matches. And yeah, as you say, I don't think he, casts any shadow on his legacy there, and fans are so happy to see him, just appreciative that he's continuing to fight and be out on the court. I thought it was kind of interesting. He's filming a documentary at the moment with Amazon Prime. I think it's sort of meant to be a similar documentary to what will be coming out this summer about Roger Federer's sort of final days in retirement that followed him at the Laver Cup. And so between the Amazon Prime crew and Amelie Mauresmo, who's the tournament chair or organizer for Roland Garros, they had a whole, party scheduled, leaving ceremony for Rafa scheduled. And it wasn't until literally a day or two prior that he suddenly sort of changed his mind and was like, actually, no, scrap that. Maybe this won't be the last one. And I find that so interesting, in terms of how he thinks long term about his career, what his expectations are of himself. He started the year with, this is probably my last year. And it's like, what's changed over the last maybe month or so that allows him to feel like maybe there's more in the tank for me. Clearly still loves the game, loves competing. I think it's fantastic that he'll get the chance to play in the Olympics. Hopefully some doubles with Alcaraz. That would be a lot of fun. He won't play Wimbledon most likely. So it's going to be kind of, interesting to see how and what he expects of himself. But at the same time, I sort of wonder, I guess it depends on what side of the camp you are as a fan. I was kind of ready to accept that this was his last one and kind of close that chapter, because I'm one of those people that doesn't love a slow demise. I don't want to see him come back next year and lose again in the first round. I love his record, 112 wins to 4 losses. That's absurd. It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things if it's 112 wins to 5 losses. It's still absurd. But I just think, I don't know. I wonder if he'll come to regret having this opportunity to say goodbye in this fashion on a good note while he's still competitive versus, what his body might look like in one more year's time. So I thought that was interesting, but, it's so hard for athletes to say goodbye and let go and to know, really what's what. So, of course, it's only up to him when he calls it quits. But I just thought that was an interesting approach on his mentality and kind of what he's expecting of himself over the next 12 months, potentially.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see. I think nobody can knows. I wonder how much even Rafa knows. But it is interesting that, as you said, Emily Mauresmo and everybody seems to have these kind of things lined up. Say, hey, do you want to have the ceremony? And Rafa's like, I'm playing pretty well, actually. And he's like, I don't know myself. It's kind of funny. So. Anyway, farewell, Rafa. If that is his last one, and we'll see what happens with it. But yeah, I think Olympics would be fun. He is playing well, so. But moving on to the WTA. So on the WTA side, we've had I think the biggest story of the WTA side so far, in my opinion, is the crazy Osaka versus Swiatek match that happened yesterday. Unbelievable match. Unbelievable. Naomi Osaka, kind of a heartbreaker for her, but at the same time, the fact that she even got so close is only a statement of, I'm back, and if I can do this on clay, which is supposed to be my worst surface, hey, watch out for me on hard courts, because I'm going to tear it up when we get to the right spot. And the fact that she was a point away from beating Swiatek at Roland Garros, hitting 54 winners against the defensive capabilities of Swiatek. Even Sabalenka didn't do that in Madrid, by the way. This is it's an exciting match to happen in women's tennis. It doesn't really matter what the result was actually for my sake. I know some people will be disappointed that Osaka lost. Some others are happy that Iga won. But whatever the case, for me, it honestly screams I'm back for Osaka. Of course, I do agree the win would have been nice. And I do think that a lot of it came down to mental nerve at the end, and Iga had more of it. I think that was the biggest case, especially because Osaka won, I think, maybe 5-6 more points than Swiatek did in the match overall. So it really came down to the mental nerve of things. But overall, I thought it was a great match and a lot of fun to watch because I think it shocked everybody that it was even that close, and it came down to Osaka's level. But Iga just made of steel.
Yeah, oh my gosh, what an exciting match. It was so much fun. Yeah. Again, like, it's why we love Grand Slam tennis. And we love, getting champions back and having these types of draws and seeing this type of match in a second round. I mean, I think, most of us looked at Swiatek's draw and thought, piece of cake, like, she's going to make it to the final, no problem, myself included. I did not think Osaka was currently at this level on clay. I started looking into a little bit, kind of like what she's doing. She's hired a very specific movement coach, somebody who was like a coach for ballet performers to help her with her kind of movement on clay, which again is a very interesting approach. I mean, she has had so much success with Wim Fissett before. I feel like this has all been kind of quite well calculated and plotted since January in terms of the tournament she's played and this kind of general progression. And I mean, she was close in that first set, didn't play a great tiebreaker, and just got down to business in that second set, absolutely destroyed Iga out of nowhere. And then, she really should have closed out that match. And I think if we had seen Naomi at, the fully sharpened self that's winning Grand Slams, she would have closed that match out. She had a chance to go up 40-15 serving for the match with a forehand that she hit long behind Iga that she wasn't missing earlier in the match, and then 2 backhands on top of the net that gave Swiatek the break back. And from there, you could just kind of see the wind came out of her sails a little bit, and it was just hard for her to kind of maintain focus. She had glimpses here and there towards the end where you kind of thought maybe she could still get it, but just credit to Swiatek in that way for like not getting overly stressed out and just, I'm going to make you play, and you're going to have to beat me. And that's so hard to do against somebody who's won 2 Masters titles back to back, with the legacy that Swiatek is building on the clay. And, it's just really hard to beat somebody who's on a win streak like that, to expect, somebody like Osaka who's in the process of her comeback to be able to finish it off. So yeah, I think what she said in her press conference afterwards was really good. She's like, I'm proud of myself, and she damn well should be. It's a really awesome feat. This time last year she was pregnant. Now she's, showing that she's back. And I just really hope that we continue to see this type of level from her, that this isn't an anomaly in her comeback process. And I don't think it is, just given her personality, but she's such a great addition to the women's tour, and she brings so much from a tennis perspective. I would love to see her slot into the top 5 with Swiatek, Sabalenka, Rybakina, Gauff, and Osaka. I mean, what a top 5 that would be. Absolutely fantastic, and would love to see those matchups against Rybakina, Sabalenka, and Gauff as well, and really see her have a go at it. So I think so many people are rooting for her. So many people have been pleasantly surprised by that performance, and it gives us something to be really excited about. Who knows what she might be able to do at Wimbledon or the US Open.
Yeah, it comes down to kind of mentality and belief as well, because coming in from, coming back, she was like, I'm not just focused on hard courts. I'm coming in to play at, on grass courts and on clay courts as well. And I mean, she absolutely showed it. And I don't remember the last time I've seen a person crack so many winners on a clay court the way that she did, to penetrate through Iga's forces. It was amazing. So yeah, shout out to Osaka, because she, I think I would also say that Iga's mental strength at the end was actually more than Osaka's mental, lack of mental fortitude, whatever you might call it, that people might say. which I do think maybe there's a little bit of that, but for the most part, she played phenomenal and deserves all the credit. And even to put herself in that position, and Swiatek is just made of steel, really wildly reminiscent of the match against Collins at the Australian Open, where Swiatek pulled through. Fortunately for Swiatek, she lost to Noskova in the next round, but we'll see. It's Roland Garros. It's a different time. It's a different everything. So Swiatek is running on so much confidence. Just probably feels like she can't lose. Didn't drop a set in Rome. Beat Sabalenka in that epic. Now just beat Osaka. So we'll see. But she is a big favorite still, despite everything. And then also
she was stressed after that match too. Did you see videos of her crying? Pretty much. I mean, that was an extremely stressful match for Swiatek, and I think she must be feeling the pressure a little bit. You know, there's only one player who's gotten the Triple Crown before. That's Serena Williams, who's done the double and won the Roland Garros title in the same year. What she's trying to do at Roland Garros is tough for somebody of her age, and would certainly be a unique feat. But I will say the rest of the draw looks very good for her. And I do think she'll take, again, like this just adds to that confidence locker of like, I can figure my way out of these really tricky situations. So, I mean, kudos to her for just being a warrior.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then going on to some of the other results that have happened as well. Let me just list off the seeds that have lost so far. We had Maria Sakkari going out, Yelena Ostapenko, Daria Kasatkina, Danielle Collins, Beatrice Haddad-Maia. We've got Alexandrova, Kostyuk, Garcia, Krajcikova, Bolter, Noskova, Kirsteya, Kudermetova, and Siniakova. Those are some of the other. Those are all the seeds that have gone out to this point. Danielle Collins was a big one earlier today. Can start from that against Danilovic. Absolutely great performance from Danilovic. She served fantastic, very aggressive. Just kept holding her serve and kept creating chances, and just kind of willed her way to the win. I feel like though Collins probably could have played the big points better and was maybe a little bit tired from a lot of tennis recently because she's been so successful. Maybe not quite. I don't know. I feel like maybe she wasn't the freshest for Roland Garros from my perspective, mentally the freshest that she could have been and all there for it because she's played a lot of tennis. That's just my kind of guess watching through the biggest moments of that match. But Danilovic converting on 6 of 9 break point chances was an absolutely massive stat for her. And just uberly aggressive and just kept fighting, creating chances. So that was a great win from her and a revenge win over from Miami where Danilovic lost 10-8 in the third set breaker to Collins. So, Collins, one of the most informed players in the world, but Danilovic got the win there.
Yeah, an upset in my opinion. Sometimes this happens. Certain matchups are tricky and Danilovic has nothing to lose. And she played a smart match. So, it happens. I hope Collins takes her power tennis and the flat hitting to Wimbledon, where in theory that's a better surface for her. Obviously, she's done well on the clay this year as well. But I do think the Wimbledon and the US Open should bring her some joy, and I expect her to refocus and have a good second half of the year.
Yeah. I expect her to keep bringing the level because it's been good. I'm excited to see what she does at US Open as well. But then some of the other things that have gone on. I mean, Sabalenka and Coco and Rybakina, I feel like they haven't been overly troubled. Coco getting through Avdeeva and Zidansek. Not losing a set so far. Then looking at a few of the other results, Sabalenka, not pretty good draw to this point. She's got Badoza in the third round, so nothing crazy from her either. For results on the women's side, I was a bit disappointed in Sakkari, but Sakkari I don't think has made even the fourth round, if I'm not mistaken, about like 8 or 9 majors, which is pretty crazy. So I don't know what to expect from Sakkari at this point, but a little bit disappointed with her performance there. It doesn't feel like players she should be losing to be honest.
She should not be losing to Krejcikova. I don't even know how to say her name. Yeah, I mean, what a poor performance it was. I mean, just sapped confidence. The difference in level she's playing at the slams is so drastic. It's just so confusing.
Really
And now she has a new coaching setup. No difference. I would just love to know what's running through her head, because she has no business. She's too good to be losing to Gracheva, a player that she just beat the week prior. I don't get it. So very, very disappointed in that, to be honest. Not sure what else to.
Yeah, I mean,
to
a player that semifinals 2 years ago and was match point up on Krejcikova could have won the whole tournament there. I mean, this is a player who's reached semifinal U.S. Open a few years ago, and now it just feels like she has nothing to say at the slams. And I mean, listen, you don't even have to be a tennis analyst. You don't have to know anything about the stats or what's going on with the numbers. You just watch Maria Sakkari play outside the slams at this point, then you're like, wow, this is a top 10 amazing player who should be going deep at all of the big events. Like, just a great player. And then you look at her results at slams and just you can't really put two and two together. It's really confusing and really strange. I hope that Sakkari can pick it up. I don't really expect it to be at Wimbledon, but I hope that she can pick it up down the road.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Disappointing, but I'm sure she's aware, but for some reason can't turn it around. So it's tough. I was also a little disappointed in Ostapenko's performance today. Obviously, a former champion from 7 years ago, or longer than that now. She faced a young Danish player, Clara. What's her last name? Towson, yes. And Towson played some decent tennis, but I mean, Ostapenko made a meal of that second set. She was up 2 breaks, made it difficult to win that second set, and came out in the third with opportunities for early breaks and gave it away. I mean, again, like another player that has been playing very well this year. I had her in my list of players that could potentially, go deep at Roland Garros, or at least make the second week again. And just no luck. And similar feelings about Kazakina, if I'm honest. Another player that's been inside the top 10, that shouldn't necessarily be losing this early. She did play someone who's on a hot streak in Peyton Stearns, who just like literally has a mentality of like, I have absolutely nothing to lose and I'm playing with house money. For sure, that can be difficult. Yeah. But I mean, question marks also over Haddad Maia, a player who's probably lost 720 points now. She didn't defend points from last year's Roland Garros, so she had a very good run. So that's going to really tip her in the rankings. Alexandrova's had a horrible year when she's been playing fantastic in years prior. Same with Kudermetova, where towards the end of last year we were talking about her, getting into the top 10 and really, being a very strong player. Just nothing from her this year. And then I'm super surprised by Kustić losing to Vekic. I mean, I know Vekic is a good player. Wouldn't be someone I'd love to see early in the tournament. But at the same time, given Vekic's form this year, making a good run at the Australian Open, picking up a title in San Diego, good runs elsewhere. This clay court season's been really poor for her when she got her first WTA title on clay, I believe. And so I'm confused by that performance. And then, just other names in here that have also dropped. Garcia, just a player that sticks to all or nothing tennis and is so inconsistent, but lost to another Grand Slam champion in Sofia Kenin, who's on and off again player as well. Krejcikova, who's just been dealing with health issues all year, but again, a past champion here, can't get it together. Katie Bolter, I mean, she really should have taken care of business against Badosa, had opportunities to do so towards the end of the second set, couldn't get it done, was just lacking confidence. Noskova, a player that made a good run at the AO, made a good run here last year, fell early as well. Kostea and Siniakova. So these are all names that, have stature in their ranking, players that you would certainly expect to take care of business in the first 2 to 3 rounds, but just unable to do so. And some are more disappointing than others in that group. But question marks for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Krejcikova is a player that last year said that I'm part of the Big Four, and then I hasn't been performing at all to that extent, really, since Dubai last year. Second section. I mean, I would say the Kostyuk loss is even stranger than that, to be honest, because Vekic, she's not. I mean, she's really good on faster court. She hasn't made a clay final, and she's just not a great player on clay. So I think the Kostyuk loss is even weirder than that, and it makes the second section actually really strange, like because Danilovic beat Collins, and now it's Danilovic versus Vekic. Kostyuk and Collins, two of the most informed players. Now it's Danilovic versus Vekic. They got Vondrousova there. So chance for Vondrousova to make a quarterfinal after making quarterfinal in the U.S. Open. So even despite not having good form, it's a chance for her. And then they could play Swiatek, but that whole section is really strange at the moment. So that's the part of the women's draw that's really wide open. Also, Siniaka losing there. It's going to be interesting to see how that section evolves. And for the weekly power rankings, for my ATP side, for my rankings of players who are doing the best at the moment and who's the most in form of the moment, or who I'm the most excited about at the moment, I'm going number 1, Jannik Sinner. Number 2, Alcaraz. They move in front of Tsitsipas. I put them up there in front of Steph, because I put Steph number 1 because I was worried about Sinner and Alcaraz injuries. I mean, Steph deserves the number 1 spot because he's had a fantastic clay season, but even the loss to Jari at Rome I didn't think was particularly poor. But I also was worried about Sinner and Alcaraz injuries. At RG, I mean, they're playing the tournament, which is the first thing. The second thing is they're playing at a high level. I mean, I know Alcaraz against De Jong was not as strong as he would have wanted it to be, but I think that he can improve as the tournament goes on. And if I'm talking about who I'm the most excited about, I would say Alcaraz and Sinner right now. But nothing really that Steph did wrong. But the Tsitsipas number 1 was mostly about, are Sinner and Alcaraz even going to be playing RG, and how are they looking? And then I've got Zverev number 4. He won Rome, and he's been absolutely fantastic. He played great against Rafa as well. So he deserves a spot. He's serving unbelievable, and against Rafa, I mean, to put his head down the way he did against a Rafa like that, when everybody in the crowd seemed to be rooting for Rafa, was really good stuff, and he's definitely one of the top contenders for the event. Then I got Rublev next. He's playing pretty well. Fritz, I think, is underrated at the moment. I think he's underrated on clay at the moment. I mean, he's getting through. Both of his first 2 rounds were 4-setters, but I mean, the players that he's beaten, I mean, Dusan Lajovic is pretty good on clay, and Federico Coria. I mean, he lost the first set, which isn't great, but then 6-1, 6-2, 6-1 the next set. He's playing a high level. I love his ball striking on the clay and the time that he gets on his shots. And I think that he's underrated because he's really improved his defense now. And I think that it takes a really, really top level player to beat Fritz. And I think he should feel pretty good about himself on all surfaces, which I don't think is the case for most American players. Then Casper Ruud is up next. Casper is up next, and he's playing good. He escaped against Fokina. I think he deserves the 7th spot. I think everybody, when they're looking at Ruud, they're looking at one of the top contenders of the clay season. Then we've got Djokovic next at 8. He played a great match in this today, so I want to give him the 8th spot. Then I got Medvedev in there, who's also playing pretty well at the moment. I forget who he had a fairly interesting match against in the first round, against Dominic Koepfer. Koepfer did a good match of pushing it, but against Kecmanovic, he had unreal numbers. I know Kecmanovic retired halfway through that match, but Medvedev, like over 80% first serve points won. Anyway, he's been playing great. And then Holger Rune, who had that fantastic comeback today, and he's done well at RG in the past. So, that's my ATP top 10.
It's a great top 10. I stuck with my guns a little bit from the week prior to the tournament. I put Sinner up into my 3rd spot. I'm still got question marks with Sinner and Alcaraz, as I mentioned at the beginning of the pod, so I would kind of belabor that point. For me, I wonder if Tsitsipas and Zverev have a couple percent more in them in the tank at this moment in time. Kind of like you said, like, is it the right player for this day, this moment? Who knows? But I fancy it. I just do. I would like to be proven wrong there. So let's see. With Sinner moving up, I moved Rublev down. I think it's about right. For him, he's still competitive. I think Ruud's right behind him. Honestly, they're probably on level playing field. Djokovic is in my 7th spot. Doesn't move because I expect him to get through to the quarterfinals without a problem, if I'm honest. Medvedev doesn't move for me. Haven't seen anything that's convinced me to move him up or down, to be honest. Tommy Paul, I'm just liking him at the moment. I put him in there. He plays Cerundolo in the next round. He has the losing head-to-head, but beat him in Rome. I feel like Paul's pretty motivated right now. I like the way that he's playing. I feel like he's taking care of business and could just be a problem, and he's beaten Djokovic in the past. So could be interesting. And Hurkacz, his side of the draw just looks like pretty decent. He'll most likely play Hurkacz in the next round. He'll play Dimitrov in the next round. So should be an interesting match between the two of those. But I think Hurkacz is a little bit of an edge this clay court season. And the serve's been working well. So let's see. I mean, the courts are so slow. A lot of these results are going to be a little bit dependent on, what court the players are playing on, indoor versus outdoor conditions. Some of the courts have been absolutely soaked these past few days, and they've just got no pace in them whatsoever. And then the indoor courts are playing completely differently. So it's really challenging, both from a player and fan perspective, to kind of know what to expect from a condition standpoint. And so, we'll have to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I mean, Tommy Paul is a good addition there. I don't know. Okay, I'll just give him an honorable mention. My top 10 really deserves to be there after the performance today. But going on to the WTA, I've got Swiatek and Sabalenka at the top 2 spots. Swiatek, I mean, just for surviving Naomi Osaka in her performance the other day, is number 1. Sabalenka cruising through. She's number 2. She's, the second best player in this clay swing. But Rybakina hasn't been healthy. We'll see how Rybakina is looking as well. Then I've got Coco Gauff, who's been cruising through as well. I like Gauff's game for the clay, so hopefully she can keep improving. Well, I mean, I think also on the women's side, it's going to be really important in the next few days, especially, I mean, Swiatek, we expect her to keep doing well, although, we expect her to keep doing well. It's mostly for the other seeds, who I mostly kind of have the most questions about. To see how they can really do when they're tested even more. But and Danielle Collins lost. She's down to 5, but she's been one of the most informed players. Ons Jabeur is looking pretty good. Excited to see her match against Leylah Fernandez, who I think is absolutely one of the biggest dark horses. Lost to Trevisan in the quarterfinals here a couple of years ago, but she was playing amazing, and I think she was injured in that match. And then Mira Andreeva as well is up there. She's playing great and definitely a danger because nobody really knows the extent of her potential yet. Madsen Keys having very consistent results, so I actually watch out for Keys, even though it is clay, where she's had good results on clay as well, but she's playing well. And then Beatrice Haddad-Maia as well, I would put at number 10 because she likes the clay courts, and she did have an early loss, so perhaps I should have switched that out for somebody else. But I guess maybe if not Haddad-Maia, maybe I'd give it to Danilovic, who I thought played well. Not sure, but maybe Fernandez. I'll give Fernandez number 10 if I could switch that out now. But yeah, that's my top 10.
Yeah, I think we have a pretty similar top half. Not much to add there. I think mine stayed pretty consistent over the past couple of weeks. I took out everybody that's lost so far because I'm just looking at this from a Grand Slam perspective. I think Svitolina has a decent draw, played a couple good matches, and has done well here in the past. And seems to get some of the French crowd on her side. So I fancy her to make it into the second week. Andreeva is playing Azarenka as we speak. I'm fancying her to win it. I hope I don't get pie in my face by the time we're done recording, putting her up to 6th spot. But I think if she is able to beat Azarenka, again, has a decent draw to make it into the second week. Peyton Stearns on a complete hot streak right now. Won the title in Rabat last week after, being match points down, crazy, 5-love down in the third set, and one of her matches came back to win it. I think she's super high on confidence. She faced match points in the first round, and then just took care of business today against Kazatkina, who's no slouch on the clay as well. So I just fancy her to kind of continue to keep causing problems and play like she's got nothing to lose. Vondrousova snuck into my top 8 because, as you say, that part of the draw has kind of opened up with some of these interesting early round losses. And, as much as we like to bash her and, her form and, was she a worthy Grand Slam champion? At the end of the day, she was a Grand Slam champion. And I do think the fact that she was a Grand Slam champion on grass is what's most bizarre to me, because her game is probably most suited to clay, in my opinion. That's why I put her in here. I mean, the drop shots, the tricky lefty, doesn't hit with huge pace, but a lot of spin, has great control and handle on the ball. I really think if she has a little bit of confidence and there's no injuries bothering her, which seems to be what, for the most part hinders Vondrousova, she really actually could be dangerous this tournament. Maddie Keys also won a title last week. She beat Danielle Collins, and I think she's playing great on clay at the moment. Again, maybe a little bit dependent on what courts she gets to play on. But, I thought she took care of business in such efficiency today against Sharif. And I just like her game at the moment. I think she's playing very well. And Jabeur, I slotted into the 10th spot. I just still have question marks about her consistency and sort of, where her level is at match after match and stringing wins back to back together. But, came through a tough 3-set battle that always boosts your stock, in my opinion. And, certainly has the game to be beyond dangerous on clay. It looks like she's working a little bit with Fernando Verdasco as well. Maybe some input there on her game. So let's see how she develops. I'm not putting too much faith in kind of where she's going in terms of being a title contender, but certainly could be someone into the second week.
Yeah, well, that's going to do it for the podcast, kind of catching everybody up. We'll be here for the in-between as well, talking about everything that went down the first week. And, I've been Anthony Hirsch.
I'm Eliza Wastcoat.
See you guys at the next podcast.